All right. So, hey everyone, Gio here, out from Elemental Rhythm. I have a very special guest today, Nessi Gomez. Um, and I'm just going to tell a bit about my perspective of who she is to me, and then we're going to learn all about her and share a bit of her story. So, welcome, Nessi.
Hi, Gio.
Um, so, as I was in my medicine journey, music played a big role in guiding a lot of the experiences. And I remember at Rhythmia, the first time hearing your music in a ceremony, and like it literally just blew me away. I had no idea who you are. Didn't even know who was singing these songs yet. But that time was probably around like 2016, 2017. And there was just something that shifted in me, like hearing your music and your voice. And I always thought, I'd love to learn more about her. And a lot of things happened to me in my life like this where I kind of set intention. And it wasn't not too long later, we were at a wedding in Joshua Tree, and we ended up sitting at the same table together. And I got to meet Nessie and her husband Lino, and we had some beautiful conversations there. Um, and it wasn't until a few years later where I was at Rhythmia again with my wife Stephanie, and we were guest speaking a couple of weeks before you're going to be there, and we had found out that you're going to be there like the week of Steph's birthday. And I thought, what a great gift or present to come back and experience that. And so we came back, and I couldn't imagine what the experience would be like, but something about that live performance and you being tapped in kind of like really just blew me away. Words can't describe the experience, but how, masterfully it was guided, almost like as if you weren't even guiding it at all. It was like something was playing through you. I didn't know how the words, but it was incredible. I still remember the first chord you played, when you opened, I guess we call it a set, or when you started to guide the music. I remember, five or six guys dropping to their knees, purging, including myself, and then like the energy shifted and just took me on such a beautiful journey. And in that experience, I was inspired to, I was breathing with the music as well, because, I'm a breathwork guy, and I was like, wow, like this would make the most incredible breathwork journey if we could somehow, use this music to create an experience. Maybe someone can feel something like what it's like to go beyond just listening, to music, maybe just being up here to embody it, to really go deeper. And so, I think it was the next day, in a chat, I was like talking to Lino and you. I was like, hey, how do you guys feel about trying this collaboration? And you guys agreed. Said, okay, let's see how it goes. Let's try it out. And it took us almost a year to complete it. And now we're just about ready to release it. Probably by the time someone's watching this interview, it will be released so that they can experience. And it was, I guess for me, like I really wanted to bring out the essence of the music in the breath work and find that balance, so it wasn't too much on one or the other. And it was quite challenging, and I also wanted to make sure that you guys were happy with it. And we'll get back to the end of that story in a bit. But what I wanted to really do is just introduce you, to people. So if people don't know about you, like who is Nessi Gomez, and a little bit about your backstory. Maybe we'll start there. Like, to tell me about how you like who you are and where you're from, and like how you first got into playing music.
Um, oh, yes. Thank you, Gio. It's really, really great to be here with you. And yeah, thank you for the invitation. Um, well, I guess, my starting point with music was when I was a teenager. I was kind of, I guess, around about 14, and I was pretty troubled. I mean, I think anyhow, I can safely say that age is quite a complicated age. It's a very tricky age because you're kind of, you're not anymore a child, but you're not yet a woman. You're kind of in this limbo land, and you've got this whole world of, your internal world is, can be very turbulent, and you're trying to make sense of your world. And that's how it was for me in my earlier years. At least 13, 14, 15 was really rough for me. And and I say this with a lot of love and respect to my family, but we didn't grow up in an environment where we spoke about our feelings. That kind of open communication didn't really exist in my kind of home environment. And so I kept a lot in, I guess, and that kind of contributed to this very dark downward spiral in my life where, I was very much, I was on antidepressants at the age of 13. I was self-harming. I was, at one point when I was almost 16, I took an overdose and ended up in hospital, which was a very, obviously, a hugely scary time for my family. Um, for me, it was almost like a rebirth. And, it was, I remember coming out of that situation being like, okay, I really want to live. And I'm very grateful that I'm here to kind of, you know, to continue my path from the other side. But I guess what really contributed to my healing journey was music. And before kind of music or, the arts was kind of acknowledged as a healing modality, I'm sure it has been, but that I guess back then it wasn't so well known as it is now. Like now we hear about sound healing and gong baths and all kinds of healing modalities. But anyway, I got into music, you know complete, I had no musical background. I couldn't read or write music, but there was such an aching in my soul, and this was my respite. This was my way to express myself. And also, growing up in quite a strict household, my family originally from Portugal, so rules are a bit different, and um so for me it was like the moment I would connect to my voice, and it was very intuitive. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to be a singer. It was really like, it was just like my way to kind of make sense of my world. And singing was also a place for me, or creating music was a place for me to kind of create my own environment, because in the physical realm I was really suffering, and I felt immensely disconnected. And especially growing up in the 80s, as a young child, on a very small island in between England and France. And I guess I guess people back then, it's not that they had the same privileges as we do now. Like, people didn't travel as much as they do now. I know for my family, it was all about survival. It wasn't about going to some kind of retreat to heal themselves. They didn't have that privilege. It was like, okay, it's all about kind of putting bread on the table. So I guess my point in that is, growing up in a very closed island and feeling very different, being aware of, that, my whole kind of family background was Portuguese. And so there was a lot of racism. That's what I'm trying to say. There was a lot of racism when I grew up. And I felt, that kind of contributed to me feeling very disconnected and ashamed of myself. I carried so much shame around who I was, and really that longing to fit in and to find my place. And so I was really kind of spending those earlier years of feeling in no man's land, because on one hand I felt very ashamed of, like I said, of my Portuguese background, and I didn't want anything to do with it, because all I understood was that was giving me trouble. And on the other side of it, not feeling English because I was born here, because of that rejection from society.
Mm.
And so that was like, and then of course the other element of it, growing up in a very strict household, and yeah, so that was really, that made me feel very like it was a very difficult time. So I started with writing a lot of poetry. I just remember sitting in my room and kind of just throwing out all this poetry, and pretty dark and intense,
Mhm.
but it was very relieving. It was very kind of liberating to kind of just, get this out of me. And then it was not so long after that I started to experiment with musical instruments. And my auntie, she had this piano in her house, and I used to spend a lot of time there as a child. And when my parents were at work, I would stay there. And her, it's a typical Portuguese house, from Europe, where at least in my family, like every surface areas covered in ornaments, and and this piano was always covered with ornaments, and I remember just kind of clearing it, and I just remember like lifting the lid of this piano and creating little melodies of, not even using my whole hands, because again, I didn't know how to play an instrument. But I remember, this feeling, I would kind of create a little melody, and I would create a melody with my voice, not really singing, anything, maybe not singing in tune necessarily, but I just remember the way it made me feel, and it would create this kind of electricity, and it gave me this instant connection that I hadn't felt outside of that, where my world was full of this feeling of separation and shame and darkness. It was a very dark time in my life. And the moment I connected to my voice and singing and, playing little melodies and creating little melodies, and then bringing my poetry into the melodies that I had created, there was something very, this is where it made me feel incredibly alive. And I guess that was my starting point with music. It wasn't necessarily about wanting to, become a singer, or like, that wasn't on my agenda. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a famous pop star, like, it was for my healing. And it was very, I wasn't really conscious, I guess, I wasn't very conscious at all at that age, but I wasn't like, oh, this is really healing me. It was just, I was just so in it, and I could spend hours being lost in this world, where I could just kind of disconnect from the pain that was, surrounding me, or not even disconnect it, but like channel this pain. It wasn't, it was really my safe haven. It was my little kind of space where nobody could tell me who I can be. Even I was aware that, okay, I'm not necessarily hitting those high notes, but I wasn't busy with that. I didn't care that I couldn't really sing in tune, or, it was just the relief it gave me, and this way to kind of really harness this intense emotions that I couldn't put words to. I didn't have the ability to say, yeah, this is how I'm feeling because of this situation.
It was your outlet to express yourself, like cathartic kind
Abs
of release and just
yeah.
losing yourself. I think there's something about that which I guess you would have to kind of be a musician or a singer to feel, but I kind of get what you're talking about. It's you almost feel high in a way where you just kind of lose yourself, and there's this kind of like feeling, and even afterwards too, like there's this kind of like glow where it's just like it's hard to put words in it, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research on that as well, and it explains why music and why singing as well gives us so much, because it's kind of really, our endorphins, we're releasing endorphins. It helps to kind of relax stress hormones, so there's a lot of, I guess with singing and music and being a musician, whether it's professional or you're just kind of like getting into it, it's probably our most, especially with the voice, it's the most holistic tool that we have, because it engages our breath, it softens our ego state, it connects us to our heart, it makes us feel connected to spirit, and it also affects us physically, and and that's what I love about it. And it brought me into the moment so many times, when I'm being lost in the mind, or kind of feeling that I'm being battled by my ego, and then just being able just to sound and voice and just relax my nervous system and help me feel safe. So that was kind of like what got me into singing, and because I felt so passionate about it, and it was really my lifeline. It was really what
Hmm.
contributed hugely to me getting over this massive challenge, especially after being in hospital for a week. And I remember going to kind of seeing a counselor for some time, and it was beautiful to be witnessed and be heard, but there was something that I found quite challenging about repeating this narrative that wasn't
Hmm.
necessarily serving me anymore. It was like, yeah,
Right.
okay. And I was just tired of it, but what I loved about singing was that I didn't need to go into any narrative. I didn't need to keep telling the story of, being in a victim kind of mentality with it. I could literally just bring whatever I was feeling and feeling it physically in my body, and then give it a sound. And
Right.
that was enough to transform it. I didn't need to kind of give it any words, and often when I improvise, I like to do it without words. Of course, words can be really beautiful, but it's just, first for me was just like connecting to the emotion, and those
Hmm.
emotions are sometimes so big that there is no words for them. And especially when I was 15, I didn't know how to explain what I was going through. It was just so intense. But the moment I would give it sound, it would diffuse it and it would transform it. And I would leave that after singing for 15, half an hour, however long. I felt lighter, I felt more together, I felt more in my body, I felt more at peace. And so I guess, that was my starting point. And then, of course, I got into bands and I was playing all sorts of music, and I loved it. It became
What types of music were you playing? Was it always kind of like that rock, folk, kind of spiritual style music, or were you
no,
like a punk band and like?
I was in a funk band for like 5 years, which I absolutely loved, because there was something that was so joyful to see all ages. I don't know, like from all of my, I was in indie bands when I started out, kind of like, gothic-y, like
Mhm.
emotional, like stuff,
Yeah.
which I really, really loved all that. I was really into kind of Smashing Pumpkins and
Hmm.
Nirvana and Pearl Jam. So I had this kind of rocky,
So I
you
guess
know,
we must be around the same age because those are all similar like influences of me growing
yeah.
up. You know. Mhm.
Yeah, so I was really into that in my younger years. And then around about 19 to 24, I was like, I was in a funk band for those years, and I was playing with some friends back home, and I loved it because it was the first time that you know, when I was in an indie band, people wouldn't necessarily dance to it. And what I loved about playing funk music was that it was fun. And
Mhm.
you get somebody in their 70s, 80s, like just get from their chair and start like rocking out to you. So that was really like, I've always been very eclectic in my musical taste. um and I guess that's also just kind of a reflection of myself because of my Portuguese roots and growing up in an English island. And I've never been into one type of music. I've always been really, I love all sorts of music. And so that's also kind of, I guess, shaped me as a musician. And it was round about, I guess, when I was 24, 23, 24, I came across a course around, basically specifically around how to work with the healing arts. And it was the first time that I had heard about music being recognized as a healing modality. And that massively excited me, because I was like, holy shit, this is totally, this is me. This is what got me into music. This is what got me into singing, was that it was healing. And
Mhm.
I'm sure it's been around, this stuff has been around way before me, but it was the first time I actually
Put two
came
and two
across.
together and just
Yeah,
made
and
the
I was like,
connection.
and so I studied a degree in creative expressive therapies in the UK for 3 years. And it was all about using the arts, and how to use the arts as a healing modality, and working with different kind of client groups. So I was kind of spending time in my final years working with kids, that were kind of troubled at school. And then later on, I was working with adults with physical disabilities. And so the arts has always been like that kind of, that was like the starting point for me. And I'd been writing songs over those years, but my songs were mostly around broken hearts and boys, and all that kind of stuff. And then around, I guess, when I was 28, I went traveling to South America, and I ended up going to Costa Rica. And this was the first time I came across ayahuasca, and I met Lino there at Pachamama. It was at Pachamama. I'd heard about ayahuasca when I was in Peru, but I wasn't really feeling called to explore it there, because I was like, well, I don't even know who, like I had some acid trip when I was 19, and it was horrendous, and I've never touched it since. I'm
Hmm.
still kind of scared of it, to be honest. But I was very called with about, the plant medicine, and there was something that felt, I don't know, more, I don't know, yeah, it felt more appealing, it felt safer, I guess, maybe because it's a plant, I don't know, something about it. um
She was calling you.
yeah, like, I know that sounds really cliched, but it was really kind
It's
of
so
coming up.
cliche, but it
It's
happened
the
to me.
truth,
It's like once it started, it was just like, hey, come. And it's
yeah,
interesting, like sometimes it comes in a very strong and obvious way, and sometimes it's very gentle, where it's just like it knows that you need that kind of gentle, like not push you into it, especially
yeah,
if you had like, a bad acid trip, no, it's like, hey, like we have to be gentle here. Um,
yeah. And so I kind of like put it to the back of my mind, like, like I said, I came across it in Peru, and then I was just like, okay, that's not going to happen there. And I just forgot about it. And then I ended up going to Costa Rica because I had a friend from back home living there. And that was the reason I ended up going to Costa Rica, was to see her. And then somebody told me about the place, the community Pachamama, and I thought, oh, that could be cool, as a work exchange, and I had no idea what I was really stepping into. I thought
mhm.
it was like a yoga center, and yeah, it was a world that I could have never imagined. So I ended up going to Pachamama as a work exchanger, and I was only supposed to be there for 5 weeks. And I remember being downtown in the village, and where they're kind of sharing the events of the week, and they were kind of sharing this event called the White Night. And I remember thinking, that's such a weird name for a night, like a white night, like. And I kind of just didn't, I didn't think much of, about it. And then I asked somebody after a couple of weeks, I was like, what is this white night that is being kind of advertised downtown? And I was like, it's a ceremony with ayahuasca. And I was like, wow, holy cowbells. Like, this is, I've been wanting to do this for ages. Like, it's, like I kind of, yeah. And I was like, well, I've been here for a couple of weeks, and I feel like this could be a really good place to explore this work, because it feels safe, and I'm not just stepping into some unknown space. So I did my first ayahuasca ceremony there back in, I think it was November or October 2010, and it changed my life. It was like a 180-degree shift in my life, but not just, on that level, but on my musical. It I don't know what it did to my music, but I went home at the end of that ceremony, and I wrote, which is featured on my debut album, You Guided Me. That was the first song I wrote after that ceremony. And it was just, something changed in my musical approach, the way I was writing music, and also in my voice. I feel like the medicine, because I started working with the medicine after some time. And basically I ended up living in Pachamama for 3 years. I was supposed to be there 5 weeks, but then I met Lino in my final week, and we just had this instant connection, and that's what made me decide to stay in Pachamama long term. And over those 3 years I worked a lot with the medicine, and you know I guess the first year it was just kind of clearing me out, and then stepping more into singing and ceremony, and being part of the Brazilian tradition, the Santa Daime tradition.
Tell me about
um
the first time you played in ceremony. What was that like? Because like for a long time, even me myself, like listening to people play music and just the curiosity of like, I wonder what it feels like, this experience. And, like for me, I remember a ceremony where there was this young guy. I didn't even know because it was pitch black at the time. It was at Rhythmia, and this voice comes, this guitar, and it blew me away. And I was just like, I wish I could sing like this. And the ayahuasca like stopped me in my tracks, and it says, you can. You just have to find your voice and sing about something that you feel. Like stop trying to be up here. Stop trying to sound like other people covering songs. Find a song and just sing it from your heart. And that changed
yeah,
everything for me. Then I started singing,
yeah,
but it wasn't until this year that I ever played, and I wasn't even in a ceremony. It was a long story, but anyways, it's part of a ceremony. we'll skip this out of the interview part, but I ended up having to go back to my room for a reason. There was a guitar there, and I
Yeah.
just started playing. But I would love to hear like that first time you played, and what that was like, if you can put words to describe it.
Oh, you know, it's such a it is so I'm going to try my best to describe it, but like, because when you ask me, like, I can feel it. I can literally,
Hmm.
it's like when you're asking me that, I feel the energy kind of coming up, rising up in me. And it is really something. I remember the first time I played in ceremony, and it's so mad because you don't feel like you're in your body. That's the first thing I remember. It's like I'm literally sitting in this vessel, and it literally feels like a vessel. And I'm looking at my fingers, and I've got my guitar, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, you always have that moment of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And the moment that, I just, there's definitely key moments where I've played in ceremony, and it's so surreal because you're singing and you're playing, but and again, this sounds so cliched, but it doesn't feel like you. And I really felt like the medicine was coming through my voice and guiding my voice. And I remember just being so blown away by it on one occasion that it kind of jolted my mind, and I forgot the lyrics because it was just so overwhelmingly beautiful. And to just be this it's like you're becoming aware that you are this vessel, and you're not just saying it, but you're like, holy shit, spirit is like freaking singing through me right now, like this medicine is like doing its work. And so it is really, and to be carried by that, and to and oh man, it's so beautiful. Like, I can't, it's so hard to really give it a language. It feels like there's no language for it. It's such a big experience.
I think
And
your expression just almost tells the story.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's and it doesn't always happen. Sometimes I sing on the medicine, and it's like, I'm still compassment, what's the word, what's the term, where like you're still okay, you're still able to kind of function.
mhm.
um but still, of course, you do feel this connection, there's still that essence of it. um but it's quite a it's quite a thing. And I feel like since drinking the tea and since drinking the medicine, like, it's guided me a lot with my voice. It's helped me to really listen to the energy and not to kind of impose my voice, but allow the voice to be guided by what's needed in the moment. So when I am in ceremony, of course, I have my songs and I have my list, but I'm really being guided by that moment. And you almost become super sensitive to all the different nuances. And it's like you're like this, like your body all of a sudden has lots of holes, and you're feeling, it's like the antennas are just like going, okay, what's needed right now. And so every note, every little detail, I'm not just singing like on automatic pilot. Everything has intention. Every single note is being guided, and there's a reason. Maybe there's somebody that is going through a really hard time in the corner, and you hear the tears, and so I'll bring the intention of, like, to sing for that particular moment. And then you can see that it's kind of doing its work. It's like, music is, when I trained in voice therapy, um, and sound therapy, one of the things that we were told was that, sound will go exactly where it needs to. You don't need to do anything, you just receive it, and it will kind of work through. It's like fine tuning your instrument, our body, our mind, our soul, our spirit's like this instrument that gets out of tune sometimes. And so when sound is kind of intervening, it's just getting everything realigned. And I love that vision. And so when I'm singing in ceremony, and I feel the energy collectively and maybe individually as well, I'm really like, every note is like an arrow of intention. It's not just like, oh, I'm just singing a song, and I don't even look, it's not even a performance. For me, it's not a performance, because it's a real prayer with sound and intention. And, for some people, you know, everyone's different and they receive the music differently. For some people, it's a huge release and it's like speaking to their soul and it's helping them to kind of work through a lot of unresolved or unrealized pain or whatever. And for some, it might be too intense because I have a certain quality in my voice that maybe is not for everybody. But I feel like in ceremony, it's very much, it's really guiding the space. And I just have these little ways, but it's not even me. It's like it's the medicine helping me how to work with the voice and to be really conscious with it, because we're very, it's a very powerful position to be in. So you have to be very careful how you're
Hmm.
working with that, because you can equally put somebody in a very difficult space. So it's sharing the music and ceremony. I won't drink as much as maybe participants, but I will drink enough to feel connected.
Mm. Oh wow, so amazing. So from there, so what happened next? So tell me about this first album release. So you started drinking the medicine, and it kind of shifted things for you. And I've seen it with many musicians, like from like pre-medicine to just starting to like a year later. It's just like the evolution is just incredible. Um, so what happened next? The internet was a bit choppy there, but most of the voice was fine. So how
Yeah,
are you seeing me
yeah.
okay?
It said okay. I see you great. It said my internet was a bit unstable, but
Okay.
I've got it connected to an Ethernet, so it
Okay.
shouldn't be too
Yeah, so any
challenging.
parts where you're talking, I could always put a B-roll of like,
Yeah,
you playing some music or something, or I
yeah,
think it'll be fine. Yeah, so tell me about, let's talk about like how then, the first album when it came out, or what the journey then happened from there to you becoming, this internationally renowned artist that, has
I always find that so weird when like, because it doesn't really click in my head. I'm still like Nessie from the little island of Guernsey that just wrote some songs, and I don't know, it always feels a little bit kind of surreal when like people say international art. Like that's how
well,
it
you
feels
are.
sometimes. Um, but I don't know. So look, everything that when we left Pachamama, so we made the decision to leave Pachamama in 2013, and we had nothing. We didn't have anything. We just had this. I'd been collecting songs that I'd been writing from ceremony, and a lot of these songs. That was my way for the integration, right? Because you come out of ceremony and it's like you've got all this insights and stuff to work with, and I didn't want to just forget it, because that can happen, right, where you have this amazing ceremony and then a week later you don't even remember what happened. And so these songs were like songs of integration. That was how I integrated the understandings and the wisdom from the medicine. And we left Pachamama and with nothing, and we just had this vision to create the album, and everything was beautifully guided. Like, it didn't make sense to my rational mind. My mind was just like, you need to get a real job and like forget this whole music story thing. But there was nothing like, this was like, it was so big. It was like we were really being guided. And again, I say this cautiously, because sometimes this kind of way of communicating can sound really like cliched, but it was really true. It was really true that everything just kind of fell into place, and we made this album. And you know i had I didn't really know how it was gonna, I wasn't really making an album for the masses. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had these songs that I just wanted to put down, because I just felt like, as an artist, if they just stay with me, then nothing else is going to come through. Like, I had to just record them and put them out and put it out for our community, because I did a lot of work in ceremony. I'd been singing in ceremony for a while, and it just felt very, very kind of nourishing for myself to get these songs out. And then, so we did a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for the album, because like I said, we had nothing. We came from Pachamama with maybe $10 in our pocket. And then and I had a lot of doubts around the whole process. It was a hard process for me. Recording the album wasn't an easy process. It was like I had to really burn a lot of this internal dialogue, all these unhelpful beliefs that I'd been carrying for many years. And so the creation of the album was a real rebirth for me. And for me, that was success in itself. The fact that I created that album was enough for me. And yeah, so we made the album, and Lino was running all over London at that time after the album had been created, knocking on all kind of labels' doors to see if they were interested. And I just didn't give a shit about that. Like, and at one point I was so annoyed with him because I was just like, what are you doing? Like what's this obsession of, like, and I say this with love and also humor. I'm not saying it to put him down. Like, he's a visionary. Like, he's got
Mhm.
so much vision. And if it wasn't for his contribution, I wouldn't be where I am now.
He saw it.
Because
He saw
he
it.
saw it. He saw it. And so it took me time to catch up with that, because it was so, like, overwhelming for me. Like, he was like running, and I
Mhm.
was like literally like a snail. I was like, in the beginning, it was a lot of resistance from my side. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And that brought a lot of conflict in the beginning in our relationship as well, because he could see this kind of thing happening and the vision of it. And I didn't feel ready, or I was telling myself I didn't feel ready. I had a lot of fears. Anyway, we made the album, and then he was approaching labels, and they were all kind of saying, yeah, it's nice, but there's no hits. And I just didn't give a shit. I was just like, I couldn't care if there's a hit on here or not. Like, I didn't make this album to create a hit. I created this album for myself. I created this album for my heart, for my own kind of healing journey. And so at one point the penny dropped, and he got over that whole story. And he kind of had an epiphany, and he was like, you know what, actually this music is going to go exactly where it needs to. And I was like, hallelujah. Like, and so from that point on, I would say it kind of that happened in winter, like around December 2016. Because I guess he had also me, and some, I would be kind of not being honest if I didn't have some kind of high hopes. But I was just like, I just don't want to be stressed with all of that. So around December, he kind of realized, actually, this is going to go exactly where it needs to. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to push it. Like, and that also relieved us from a lot of that pressure.
Mhm.
Um, and from that point on, we just started slowly getting invitations. We also did like a little kind of tour in Europe. So when we were making the album, Lino had the vision. He always gets his visions in the shower. He's like, it's a great place to get my downloads. So he had the vision of, let's go to Europe, let's do a little tour, let's promote the music a little bit. And so we organized 3 months on the road. We hired a car, and we were playing in people's living rooms. We were playing to 20 people, we were playing to 30 people, we were playing to 5 people, and we were having the time of our life. Like, it just felt like amazing to be in service to the music. It wasn't, again, like, it wasn't like I was trying to achieve to get some kind of, this was just who
Mhm.
I was. This was just part of my life. And it just felt like, oh my God, I've been living in Guernsey for so many years, and I have so many amazing friends that are super talented. And I don't know, I think because of the community and the medicine music community, I had a tribe to play to, because when I was growing up, it was mostly pubs and alcohol vibe. And actually, I'm really grateful for those earlier years of playing in pubs, because it gave me confidence as well. Like, there'd be loads of drunk people, and you'd be playing a song and nobody gives a shit that you're playing. But it was a really good place to kind of develop and grow and practice new material and not feel too self-exposed. But so there's every piece in my puzzle has just been, it's all been necessary and beautiful. And of course, when I released my album, which was 2016, like, medicine music hadn't really had a name for itself back then. And it didn't, I would say it's only been in the last few years that it's really kind
Well,
of,
I think even in 2016, most people still hadn't even heard of ayahuasca,
no, it was
like
still super underground.
yeah, like I remember releasing a documentary. I made it, started making it 2015. I didn't want to release it 2018 because I was afraid of like what people gonna think of me. Is this too much? And so
Yeah,
2016, like probably out of 10 people around me, maybe one had heard of it. Or when I
yeah,
tried it, maybe one have heard of it, and like that was it.
yeah. And so, also, I guess in that stage for myself, because I would say back then, the kind of music scene, around the people around that music scene was more into mantras. It was more like a mantra vibe, and I remember not fully, but that was
Yeah, like for
definitely,
me, it was definitely mantra vibes, and the other stuff was just like the traditional South American medicine music, like
yeah,
very, very like flutes and chanting and
yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah.
And so when I kind of came on the scene, people didn't really know what to do with me a little bit. I remember some festivals not wanting to book me because they thought my music was too dark, which which for me is like such a huge compliment, because I was really like being triggered as well. I just remember just feeling like, and I really, I don't want to sound disrespectful, so please forgive me if it comes across like that, but I was a bit allergic. I still am to this kind of ultra positivity stuff. I was like, where is the sincerity? It's like, of course, it's so beautiful to hear a song that is like talking about, all the beauty and the light and stuff, but it kind of lacked depth for me, so when I came along and I was sharing my music, and, is it, of course, it was like my journey with myself. It was a real, you know, it was a very intimate expression of my own, you know, soul. And I remember when I did play at festivals, I would people, come to me and say, thank you so much, because I feel like it's giving me permission to kind of express those parts of myself. And I felt really honored, that there
Mm.
was a voice for that. And it wasn't just like, we are light, we are, because of course we are those things, but we are also the
I
other elements,
can't agree with you more. Can't
and
agree with you more.
of course, that was a lot of learning in ceremony. People aren't sitting in ceremony just like, of course there's moments where you feel this like, oh, euphoric liberation, but there's fucking tons of darkness as well. And I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to go into those kind of more, you know tricky corners of the mind. I guess also because I met that at such a young age,
Mhm.
and I feel like what creates a lot of suffering is when we deny that part of ourselves.
I had a guy yesterday. We had a big breath work last night. About 40 or 50 people came, live music. It was amazing. And an old friend of mine came who was just really new getting into space, just messaged me, but he's thinking about finally doing a ceremony. And he's the happy go lucky guy. He's Mr. Positivity. He's the guy who's always like doing the Bob Proctor's mindset. And he was sharing yesterday that like he has so much pain inside that he doesn't feel he's allowed to express because he has taken on that persona of like positivity, positivity, positivity. And he cried and he's like, so I'm not the positivity guy. I'm like, no, that is positive. Being able to
Yeah,
express your emotion, don't think of that as wrong or negative. It's part of being human. And how does it feel? It's like, it feels amazing. I feel like I need to, there's more. I'm like, well, if you've been Mr. Positivity your whole life, there's definitely more that needs to come out. But it's almost like some people might feel in that world, if I am not feeling positive, then I'm an outcast also. Like going back to your
yeah,
story of like wanting to fit in. And if I'm coming to these ultra positive spiritual environments and I'm not feeling that, should I pretend or should I be authentic and be able to share? And I think, you know, from hearing what you're saying, your music allowed people to be honest with themselves and to
yeah,
express what they're really feeling,
yeah,
and I think it's important that people know that that's okay. It's not
totally.
all about, we live in the dualistic world. There is both spectrums, fully. And our lives usually don't just have one or the other. We would be denying ourselves and not being truthful if we said that it was one or the other. So yeah,
No,
I think that makes so much sense. It's so beautifully put together in your journey.
Yeah,
And so you're doing the tours, and I mean, you're starting to kind of connect with this community, and people are really feeling that change of pace, I guess, in the expression of the music.
absolutely. And, and it's, yeah, it feels a real honor, really, and I mean, I love all kinds of music. Do you know what I mean? I mean, also, it's very hard for me to, sometimes people like to characterize my music and call it spiritual, and I don't look at it like that at all, and I don't want to be kind of limited to that, because I feel in general we are all very complex human beings, and we have so many different layers of expression, and I want the freedom to express whatever needs to come through. And sometimes that might be really shallow, and sometimes it might just be, you know I don't know. I went to a Beyonce concert a couple of weeks ago, and I freaking loved it. And it was so liberating, and it was just fun, and people just letting go. And it was, yeah, it's really important that we have the freedom to just express all different parts of ourselves and not get too caught up into certain ideas of what expression should be in order for it to be sacred and holy, because it's
Right.
all, like, I just, when I was growing up, I listened to so much stuff that wouldn't necessarily like fall into spiritual music, but my God, it touched me spiritually. And
Hmm.
and it's like, sometimes there's so much around that, and having certain personas, and I just don't, for me, I just want to have the freedom to kind of explore and express whatever needs to kind of be
And
present.
I think we do that as human beings, where we ascribe to one thing, like a religion, and there may be something in a different religion that speaks to your soul, but you feel like, oh, it's not my religion, so I can't, connect with it. There's all this fear around, the same thing with music. I know some people that probably listen to like heavy metal, and it just allows them to let that part of them, maybe that anger, just to like release it. And there's some
Yeah,
very deep connection to that. And like even like tribal music was all about like moving, shaking, like heavy drumming to kind of release that. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it should be. This is what I even say like about breath work. It's like it's not spiritual, but it can be. But you
yeah,
put the words to it that you feel. Like, how do you describe this experience for you? Whether it's mystical, spiritual, I hate it, it's horrible, whatever. And don't try to like make it be something, experience it, and you can make up your own kind of words to describe what it was for you, because some people are not spiritual, or don't use the word spiritual, but in many ways are expressing what I would see as a spiritual person,
yeah,
and these are just terminology or words that we're trying to define this human life, right? The way we kind of describe consciousness and reality, and like even how you're trying to describe, playing music. Like sometimes words can not even come close to describing, but they can be
no,
limiting, in us trying to make
totally,
sense of it or trying to communicate it. But I always tell people, just allow yourself to have the experience, and don't try to think about what it is or to analyze what it should be, or am I doing this right, or is it okay? It's
yeah,
just.
especially when they're having like a challenging time with it, right?
Mhm.
So, when I remember when we did your breathwork session, it brought up a lot of intensity for me. And, I couldn't speak at the end of it. Like, I know we were going to have a moment of just kind of reflect. I was so in the like anger came up for me. Like, I
Mhm.
was like, I was in this ball of anger, and I had no words. I couldn't communicate. And it's like, sometimes we think like when we do this work that there's got to be some particular outcome,
Mhm.
and it's the same when I do my voice work. I'm always saying, whatever comes up is totally valid. We're not trying to achieve some kind of spiritual, achievement, or, that you're going to feel lighter and you're going to feel like whole. Like, you might feel fucked up afterwards for a bit, and that's all right. And to give it space,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, I think, yeah, because also when we do our work with the voice work, like, Lino brings this lovely kind of fun, playful element. And I
He's so
remember
much fun.
he's so much fun. And I remember we had one participant, this was years ago, saying it was pretty like, you know, jokey and laughy. It wasn't so spiritual. And it's so funny, like, it's just so funny
Of
how
what
people have
spiritual is supposed to be, right?
what it's supposed to be and how you're supposed to look, and you've got to wear certain, items. And sometimes I have the most in-depth, beautiful, meaningful conversations with the roadman sweeping the floor,
Right.
that feels so sincere, and there's no spiritual ideas of what life should look like or sound like or be like.
and and
And
and for me, it's just like all about awareness. It's like it
yeah,
doesn't have to be this, but what is coming up within you? This anger, there's something there that's trying to get your attention that you might need to bring awareness to, or to make a shift, or this judgment of like I'm getting triggered because it's too fun.
yeah,
Okay, like there's an awareness there.
yeah,
Like Lino in that situation was a tool to raise your awareness to something within you. I don't have that answer.
yeah,
We can talk about it. I can share my perspective, but really it's, up to you to kind of see, okay, like what's happening here? Why am I feeling so angry right now? And it could be something from, way, way back that's being triggered again that maybe needs more awareness and healing. And maybe it's something that's really present, like right now in your life. That's like, okay, like something needs to shift here. And
yeah,
it's different for everyone, but I agree 100%. It's like maybe 90% of the people are having this light, fun, cathartic experience, but those that aren't, it's like it's not that something's wrong with you or you're doing it wrong. It's like in this moment, this is what you need. This is
yeah,
exactly what you need to process. And I think, you know, at the same time that you were having that experience, I was on the other end and I was like, she hates it. She doesn't like it. And, okay, like I
I
didn't care about all the
really
work.
loved it.
Yeah, I didn't care about all the work. Like, we put a lot of work into it, but like, that was beyond it. I was like, okay, like, what was most important was that you guys loved it. And so,
Yeah,
you didn't come on camera and I was talking to Lino, and Lino had the opposite experience where like he
he
was
was so,
crying and, you
yeah,
know,
he
and
was like completely like we were in so different worlds, and I just remember like being really triggered by him as well, just like shut up. Like I was just like, but like no, he was, and it's interesting, it was just really interesting, and I was just completely shut down afterwards. But I think that's the key, it's awareness. It's not about trying to achieve anything. It's not like, right, if I do this, 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 and this, then I'm going to become some enlightened being, and I think, that goes for everything. It's all about awareness. And it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make a conscious choice. I can stay here and be identified with this anger, or I can be just like looking at it as an opportunity for growth and be curious.
the emotions are like a map inward, and if you want to follow that map, it's going to lead you to something, and a lot of the times these strong emotions are tied to a belief about ourselves or a belief about the world, the lens. And when all these things trigger that belief or that core wound or whatever, we feel the emotion, and it's trying to say like, hey, like there's something in here that needs to be healed or changed. And coming back to that experience, like he just said, listen, when Nessie, comes together, like she'll share. And so, here I'm sitting for like 24 hours and I'm waiting. And then I got a message from Lino. And I think it was later that night, like 3 or 4 hours later. He's like, Nessie's just has a hard time with breath work because it brings up a lot for her. She loved the music, so, but she's going to share tomorrow. I was like, what does that mean? Is he just trying to be nice? Like I'm all in my
Yeah,
head
yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah,
but what unfolded, I think, for me was something like super special because, I know he'd mentioned at the time you guys were going through a few things with, music or something like that that was very stressful. And, also this whole journey of creating this, I was working with Lino and he said you guys were super busy and there wasn't as much communication as, would have probably we would have probably wanted. And even me, like I'm super green and fresh to this music world, so like contracts and like I have no idea what is normal. And so I guess whatever I proposed that agreed to initially, it wasn't in perfect alignment for both of us, and the whole way it unfolded, this synchronistic, like perfect way, it allowed us to now reconnect and talk about how you were feeling, how I was feeling, and really just share like the intention and what felt good. And I felt through that process, like I felt such a deeper connection for you and Lino, like
yeah,
100%, like just really felt more connected and really wanted to support this whole project in even a bigger way, and the conversation we had through the voice notes, it was just really, it was really special for me, and just to see how business, call it business, but like these things can be done,
yes,
like
totally.
in my life, in my old life before I had my transformation, everything was about winning. It was about, can I get more, can I make a profit, and it was always at the expense of someone else.
Yeah.
and moving into this space, you know, whatever you want to call it, the healing arts, or just being more conscious, and the world, the state of the world that it's in right now. I think we need to look at things differently and really, really be conscious of everyone else that's affected.
Yeah.
Like we are all related, and we have all these relations, and it's really important to honor that and to really hear. And I think that the short-sightedness of my past was the short wins. Make an extra 5% here, get this deal, do this sale. But what I've been learning is the more I really just give authentically and really be open and understanding of others, the abundance comes from all different places, tenfold, a
Yeah.
hundredfold, the
A million
opportunities. And
times.
it's you can an accounting system can never capture it. Like
No.
never, because there's not a system for that in the world right now that
Yeah.
it maybe understands or has a level of consciousness to see. But my journey has been more awareness, to just kind of be open to this, and I've been able to see it and feel it and experience it in ways that I can't even describe. Like the synchronicity is like one in a billion, it feels like. But then always the guy's like, no, it's 100%. It can only happen this way, although it seems totally improbable. Like this was how it was supposed to happen. You know.
No, it was so beautiful, and I was so grateful for that, because it was, I mean, it was just the timing was probably perfect, because it was really in the middle of something that I was going through personally. And that whole thing, the breathwork session just kind of brought it to the surface. And it wasn't even anything about you, or what I mean. It was just like, it was really kind of going into that wound and that kind of situation. And what I loved about that as well was, the resolution that we had, not that, just to make it clear that there wasn't any big bust up or anything,
Right.
but you know the I think I've been so used to kind of like people demanding and jumping and being like, right, I want this, I want that. And I guess I got a bit clawy, like kind of protective, and feeling it unseen. Again, this is not you. It was just tapping into some kind of wound stuff. And the resolution that, the fact that I could share with you, and that you were so approachable, and it was like there was something in my body that said, I feel safe, I
Mm,
feel safe. And that immediately disarmed me, you know and and that things can be resolved, and or like, you know because it was a bit scary. It was like, oh God, like, because I really loved what you created. I remember sitting there going, wow, that's really cool. And I was doing my breathing and stuff, but I was also like very curious, and kind of listening to the music and seeing how it had been transformed and adapted to fit this kind of new way. And I was really kind of blown away by the production of it, and also the way you guided it was immaculate.
thank you.
Sometimes this stuff can make me cringe, because it's like, oh God. But it was really beautiful, and it felt very holding. It was really holding. And also Lino's super sensitive to things like that, like, and he just was so, he loved it as well. So we knew that there was nothing there in the production of it that was felt disrespected, or it just something came up for me during that process that I was going through in my life, that had no connection to the actual session, but the session brought it up. And then it was an
Hmm.
opportunity for me to kind of maybe express myself, where maybe in the past I didn't express myself with, in the best of ways. And so it was an opportunity to kind of just share, what I was going through and what it brought up for me, and to have you on the other end of it receive my words with love and care. And it was like, oh, it's like, yes, it's okay. It's not always going to be like
Hmm.
conflict, and some that you
Hmm.
have to like protect your work, or so that was really powerful for me in that sense. And I'm very grateful that that you were able to hold yeah my journey in that way.
Yeah, thank you, Nessie, for sharing that. And yeah, it was beautiful for me, and it also helps me to learn, like to open that conversation maybe earlier and really just connect about, it was experiment in a way because we'd never done anything like this before. But working with artists, it's like this really like to nurture that process and the communication maybe in a better way. So I learned so much from it. I'm also equally grateful. I know we're running a bit short on time. The songs we selected, can you speak to them at all? About all related. Heine and Falling Birds, and then the last one was Hold My Hand. You know,
Oh, I think the way you selected the way they were kind of the way they were placed in the journey was amazingly perfect. It's probably what I would have done, and in terms of the decision of where to bring the song. And I guess when you say speak about the
like
songs,
all
do you
related. Like to you, what is that song about? Like, can you speak
okay.
to that a little
So
bit?
for me, I guess all related is this it's like I guess there's so many layers to this song, but the one that
And I
always
listened to
stands
your
out.
music so much over the last years. I was like, oh, like hearing the lyrics again and again, and just like going deeper into it. And I could see how much depth each song has. And each
Yeah,
song itself is like a journey. Like
yeah.
I felt like, yeah. So, anyways, sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
No, not at all. Like all related is kind of acknowledging our humanness, acknowledging that we can all go through life, with very different experiences. We all have very different stories to tell one another. But at the end of it, if you peel back all those layers of if you peel back all the stories back, and we all want the same thing. We all go through life where we're on our knees, but and there's a lot more that unites us than what separates us.
Mm,
And for me, and I'm not saying that I feel this all the time. Of course I have moments where I don't feel that we're all related, like there's moments where I feel really disconnected from people or from society or from like what the hell's going on with the world. Um, but to come back, for me, this song is a real song of remembering, like that beyond all those ideas, we are all connected through love. Love is what unites us, it's like that line in our darkness. I can't remember. It's so funny. I'm not very good at remembering my words when I speak them, but I'm good at when I sing them. No more darkness in this love, like it's just yeah, it's kind of, I traveled so much in the last few years, and meeting different cultures, and you see the same expression, you see the same needs that we all have, like it doesn't matter if you come from a wealthy background or a more kind of less financially wealthy background. It's like we all want to feel safe, we all want to thrive, not just like through abundance, but through just feeling joy in our life, and
having a sense of purpose, having
having
finding
purpose, having
fulfillment,
meaning.
and yeah.
And for me, this song is really like, I always play this now. It used to be a song that I would play in the middle of my set, and
Hmm.
now I save it for the end, because it's like we go on this whole journey with the music, and then it's like, okay, this is the finale. Like, let's
Hmm.
call this energy in. We are all related in love. We are all connected, and whenever those moments of feeling separated or getting lost into the challenges of life, and you know just to come back to remembering, because when we sit around that fire or we sit in ceremony, we feel that unity. And sometimes when we go back into our life and we get caught up with day-to-day missions, we can easily forget it. So in a way, this song is about helping us to remember, to call back the
So
tribe,
beautiful.
this like spirit tribe,
Yeah,
and
and I love that because when we go to ceremony, like at Rhythmia, for example, sometimes like 90 people, and you feel this connection, and no one's asking like, "What's your political stance? What are your medical views?" Like, like no one cares where you're from.
no,
What you're. It's like you just see people like as they are, and you
yeah.
really get to connect without all the stories getting involved. And it's a reminder that it's possible. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, you're there in this group of people, and people are vomiting into buckets, and it's just like you see yourself in them, like you see somebody completely like broken or like disheveled on the floor, and it's like there's this real kind of sense of you know, without, like you said, without speaking, without having to say, hey, so what do you do for a living, you
Right.
know, which is so non-important, really. Like,
You really realize in that moment how unimportant it is.
it's totally, and you know, you maybe just been kind of making eye contact with somebody, you know, in the or you just saw someone that, I don't know, reminds you of somebody, and I don't know, it just you know, and that being in that circle together is so profound and so healing in itself, you know,
And you
and
see, like, just thinking about
the
how connected.
vulnerability
Yeah.
as well.
And just like the little interactions of synchronicities of how connected we all are. Like someone will say one thing and it like, okay, like it just will like is exactly what you need to hear, whether it
Yeah,
triggers you or not. It's like it's just so perfect.
yeah. So
Um
that's what all related, you know,
mhm.
that's kind of what I feel when I sing that song.
So
um
the next song is one of my favorites. I realized I have more than one favorite after, going through your music so much. But when I heard you play Heini Ani was the first time I heard it live, because I don't think it's on your album, but it was like
no.
a single or something. I don't know if it was just the passion in your voice, but something when you sung that song was just like it just like knocked me right over. Can you tell me a bit about that? What that how that song
so
came to be or
this
what it means to you? Or...
so this song is, the original writer is Shai Benzel. He's an Israeli artist, amazing artist, and the original is very different to the version that I recorded. I came across the song, funnily enough, when I was traveling Australia. um I say funnily enough because Lino's from Israel and the song is from Israel, but I discovered it in Australia. And I was invited to a singing circle, and there I was sharing All Related, and then the lady that was hosting it, she shared this song, and I just remember feeling so deeply connected to it without kind of understanding the lyrics at that time. And then I was learning it when I was traveling Australia, when I was touring Australia. I was just playing it because it was just nice to play something new for a change. And I just fell in love with it. And then Lino translated the lyrics, and I think, yeah, the lyrics are something like, here I am, completely yours, do as you will with me, I have come empty, I surrender. um Within me I will hear your voice, even if everything is taken away from me. um I will surrender, and um something along the lines of, it will fill me with inspiration. From the pain, it will fill me with inspiration. And as somebody who loves kind of diving into the dark, you know, and this beautiful, the translation of this just went even deeper, and something about the melody and singing in another language that wasn't Spanish, you know, that is like, I love Hebrew. I think Hebrew is an incredible language, and a lot of Hebrew songs are incredibly deep. They just go really, like, there's just something about that language that just does
Mhm.
something. um and so, yeah, for me this is about surrender, and really, yeah, it's such a powerful one, and I see that it's people really really connect to this song. And yeah, I want to give my gratitude to Shai, who wrote this song, this beautiful prayer, and I feel very grateful that he gave me permission to do my own version of that as well. So
It's such a beautiful song.
yeah, it's amazing. And I think also the way it was recorded. So Misha Malovobado, he produced it. He plays double bass on my album. He plays a lot on Danit's album. And we recorded it in his house in London. And he's also a genius when it comes to harmonies. And I feel like, yeah, it didn't need much, this song. We were very clear that it just literally needed the guitar, the voice, and this other instrument. I can't remember the name of it. And then, of course, the layers of the voice. And yeah, he did an amazing job to that.
Yeah, amazing. Um, and then there was Falling Birds, and then yeah,
I, I'm really happy you chose Falling Birds, because this is, I really love this song, and you know, I love playing it when I'm sharing it live. There's a part of the melody that, anyway, I have no idea what this song is about. It's one of those
Mhm.
songs that, you know, sometimes in my writing process I come with a melody, And if I get the melody, if it kind of resonates, then I start to get visions. And
Mhm.
so I'm just singing the visions. And of course there's some lines that I can relate to, that I know that that's kind of some part of my life that I felt at a particular point, but I really have no idea what Falling Birds is
And I
about.
think that's beautiful too, and I think people connect to it in their own way, and
Yeah.
it means different things to different people.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a bit of a mystery, that song. You know, f- I I don't feel a sadness when I sing this song. It doesn't make me feel sad. It's just, it's kind of really like, I don't know, I feel like I'm dancing in some other realm when I
I
sing
love
this
that.
song. But yeah, I don't really know what the meaning of this song. It just came, like I just got the imagery of a bird. And but yeah, but I love that. I love when there's not really maybe some major meaning, and maybe there is meaning, but at different point, I don't know. But I love to play it.
And that's a great song. And then the last one was Hold My Hand.
Yeah.
And
I
that was
love Hold
such a
My Hand.
beautiful song, like just really. And we made like I guess an extended version because when we the way it was recorded, a lot of these tracks were kind of like I think you did the guitar and the other
Yeah.
instrument, whatever it was, together. So we had a lot of trouble initially, and then we
Yes.
found a way to kind of
Yeah,
pull it together.
I remember you had the challenge, and I also had the challenge. So this is the thing about Hold My Hand. This is one of my favorite songs, and I feel like it's a real kind of song that honors our pain, but not from a space of like just getting lost in it, but also kind of calling us out of it as well in a very gentle way. But so when I recorded this song, because I felt very protective over this one because it was really one of my favorites. Initially, I tried recording it separately, the guitar and the voice, and it just lost all the feeling. There was just
Mhm.
no feeling, there was no spirit in it. I couldn't play it to a click track because something about the song needed it not to be like rigid. Um, so when I did do the recording for this, I initially I recorded the voice and the guitar at the same time. And then it was quite an art to have the other instrumentation guessing when I was like coming, because it
You
wasn't
had
on
to
a
feel
click.
into it. You
You
had
had
to
to
like
feel it.
it was it. It
Yeah.
was interesting, and I think that I see a lot of artists that are trying to record in a studio, and and it loses something when it can becomes overly manufactured. You lose that
Yes.
spirit,
Yeah.
and I think it's beautiful that you're able to capture that and just do it and trust your intuition and
Yeah.
just get it done in the way that it had to. And
Yeah.
it's such a
This
powerful
was
song.
this was one song that I didn't do it to a click track. I just couldn't, because every time I did, it just lost the magic. It lost all the emotion and the feeling, and so yeah, and this song needed the feeling because of the content of the words, and like talking about the pain and like this being on your knees and just like reaching your limit with life, just reaching that you just can't fucking take anymore. Like I've literally given everything. I'm praying and no one's listening. Like this is where we were some years ago, and Lino was helping me with the lyrics of that song. He's really great at writing lyrics as well, and he wrote the English part to All Related. But with Hold My Hand, it's really like it's like that last moment where you can't take any more, and then there's this golden light or something clicks, and then there's this other voice that comes that says, hold my hand, don't worry, it's going to be over soon. Like this, like the higher self coming in, where you feel like you've literally can't take any more, and then it's like this I don't know, this other being or other spirit or your higher self, however you want to call it, just comes, and it's like, I'm here. I'm going to hold your hand through this, through the darkness. We're going to get through it, and so I really love singing this song. It's one of my favorites to share in ceremony, or, even when I'm playing, a concert, and I see people crying. Like, it's, for me, that's the ultimate compliment, that I know it's doing exactly what it needs to. Like, it's really
Mhm.
working on that person's heart and soul. And so yeah, that's really one of my medicine songs that I feel is, yeah, it's given me so much, because when I feel, when I go in those spaces, it's like, I guess in a way, and I share this with people, like these songs, they're reminders for myself, because I also
Mhm.
go into forgetfulness, and I also can go back into those places where I feel really disconnected, or I feel resentful or whatever. And so these songs, it's like they call me back. It's not that I'm some kind of evolved being that doesn't experience the hardships of life. Of course I do. So they're beautiful little reminders for me. It's like, sometimes I make a joke, because I'm like, I don't know who wrote that, because it's who I am in that world is so different to who I am outside of it, because I'm super complex and sometimes grumpy, or, we're human.
Right? Absolutely.
But when I sing, and I'm it's like it kind of brings a really a kind of the better version of myself in a way, or
Mhm.
like the more kind of stronger version of myself, and calling me, just collecting those pieces, just like when I was 14, like just when I was that really broken spirit, and I just felt parts of my being were all over the place.
Mhm.
And the moment I sang, it was like these, and like I have this vision of like what's it, like those octopuses have these
Mhm.
tentacles,
Mhm.
and it's like when I sing, it's like these tentacles, these like waves of colorful light tentacles, like going out and just collecting pieces of my soul, and like just pulling it back, and creating this, like just creating this yeah, just calling me back into wholeness, but not denying my humanness, not denying my imperfections, like loving them, and bringing them close. And in a way, it's like what we had, it was like loving those parts, not denying it, not being like reactive, or like, oh, she didn't like it, oh my god, and getting defensive, or like there was just this real loving. It was love. It was just like there was so much love in that process. And yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, like things need to break apart to come back together and to be recreated and come back into like a alignment, and a
Yeah,
better alignment. And I really felt that happen. Okay, I know we're over time.
no, it's fine, don't
I
worry,
could listen
don't
to you
worry.
speak all day, just the passion you have and the way you talk. Um, I guess just in closing here, just maybe we can set an intention, for this track, for this experience. For me, the intention is to share this with whoever needs to hear it, and for them to know that the intention is to bring more awareness, to help them to kind of see themselves in whichever way they need to help their growth and their journey. And also to honor your music and to showcase that, because even within the music itself, there's so much passion and wisdom and transformative guidance in there, just in the music. And if I can share that with more people, um, I think it's just gonna help them in whatever way it needs to, and also support you and everything that you're doing, you and Lino
Mm,
and your beautiful family. And so that's my intention with this. And then I'm also, open to receive. I'm hoping that people become more aware of breath work if they want to learn about it and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm open to however that comes, but the real intention is just to give first and just to be open to
yeah, all about
however the
that.
universe. Mhm.
No, it's beautiful, and I feel very honored, and thank you so much for, receiving my music in that way, and having this vision. And I feel that, like, like my album, when we started our version, started our journey, that, you know, I think this work that you've created will go exactly to the people that will need it and receive it. And it's so beautifully done. And I think the fact that there's so much heart there, and it's really coming with such good intention, and that it's just going to do its thing. And it's like ripples, you put it out and it will just do its thing. There's nothing to
Mhm.
do. There's nothing to do.
There's
It's
nothing
just
to do.
people just will receive, they'll stumble across it, and they'll receive the medicine of that work, and your work, and the way you put it together so beautifully. And I hope as many people, you know will get so much out of it. I know it's powerful, and it's really powerful because I had such a strong process on it,
Mm,
and it was really transformative in that sense, and it's just done beautifully, really. I feel
thank you.
very honored.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, I hope you enjoy the tracks for those who are listening, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation between myself and Nessie. And Nessie, again, just gratitude to you and everything that you're doing. And hopefully, sometime in the future we can maybe collaborate on a live experience or do something cool together. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I would love to do something with you guys. So
I'd love that.
yeah, thank you so much for your time, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the breathwork journey.